Welcome back to Beyond the Limelight. We're excited to be here. It is now 2021.
Thankfully.
I mean, we're looking up.
Feels better already.
Yeah, it already feels better. We have a very special guest today, but he's on a much warmer side of the planet right now. You are in Miami, Florida, correct?
Yes, Miami, Fort Lauderdale.
And we have the honor of presenting Rane Renshaw. He's a lighting director and designer. You might know him from, the guy's done so much stuff.
Limelight Wired, Omnia nightclub. I mean, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh man, well, first of all, thanks for having me, guys. I'm been excited to meet up with you guys and talk over Zoom and plug into your show. And I'm grateful to be here. Number one, so thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
I am a lighting director, programmer. I've been diddling and hanging out and plugging in lights since I was a kid. Back when I was 8 years old, right? I grew up in Dallas, Texas. So right as production kind of became mainstream in mega churches down south, I was there as moving lights kind of came in and, was a volunteer and started plugging in lights and found it to be, as so many do in our industry, found it to be interesting and hung with it for a long time. So from Dallas, I moved to Pittsburgh, where I went to college at Carnegie Mellon, studying lighting in their drama program. Really great program. Then on the weekends, while I was working my way through school, I was working at a nightclub in Pittsburgh called Diesel, and I found that I liked that even more. So I kind of pursued that pretty hard and ended up in Las Vegas at a nightclub called Omnia, which was really a perfect storm of everything because it was a theatrical, and it was a nightclub, and it was a concert. And I was there up until, as you mentioned, 2020, when the world fell apart a little bit.
Well, that's great, man. And I think our first interaction with you was through your Instagram, Limelight Wired. Not affiliated with Beyond the Limelight, but I mean, Limelight Wired is a platform I think everyone needs to follow if you're in this industry. How did that start about? Before we go into like lighting designer and director, how did Limelight Wired start?
Well, thanks, man. I mean, when I was working in the nightclubs in Vegas, those hours are just so weird. I was working nights and I had all these days off, and I was constantly looking for, something to fill that time with. And at one point I was like, well, I need to be reading up on my craft. You know what I mean? Because we do the same show. And after a few years at the nightclub, it becomes rinse and repeat like most gigs do. And so I was looking for a way to kind of just, get back in touch with what had been going on in the industry since I left school. Because, we use the same equipment, the same consoles there. And I was like, oh man, there's so much out there that I didn't know. And I didn't really like any of the platforms out there for myself to become, tuned back into the industry. I thought that it was a little archaic. The magazines and the websites that I had read since I was a kid were kind of formatted the same still. And so I just started making content for myself, really, because at the beginning there was no platform or following. I was like, oh, I read about this today, and I'm going to make some content about that. And I included some internet humor in there. And then before long, it got a little following. And then people were asking me to do stuff, on certain topics that they were interested in. And from that point on, man, I just kind of have been running with it.
Yeah. I mean, it's incredible. I mean, I remember walking to Ryan's office going, what is this Limelight Wired? It is so pro. It is so classy. You do everything so elegantly for our industry. And it's just stuff that we can appreciate because, we see that lacking, and it's good to see someone actually taking the reins and getting that done.
Hey, man, I appreciate that. I received those positive words because I love to hear it. And it means a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that it's a little bit of everything too, where you have, the humor, the memes, but you also have those educational videos, those tips. It's a little bit more expanded than some of your regular magazine stuff like that, where it's just article, ad. So I really do like the change of formatting.
Yeah. So listening right now, go to Instagram, Limelight Wired, follow them, like everything they do, because they're going to be doing big stuff. So, Omnia, we know a lot of lighting designers, a lot of lighting directors. We work with a lot of people in the industry, and I see there's a different aspect when it comes to nightclub lighting and touring side of things. So what, did you always want to do something that was, installed, ready to go when you get into the door? or was it just kind of the opportunity arose? What was your first experience with working in a nightclub?
Well, to be honest, that's a good point. I was attracted to how improvisational the artistry was, and those are big words to just say I really liked busking. But I liked that the set list wasn't the same every night. I liked that the audience wasn't the same every night. And I liked that the rig is the same every night, but it doesn't feel the same every night because everything about the venue changes except for that rig, and sometimes even the operators change. The bigger the act you get, they bring in their guys and you get to see how they use your equipment or the equipment of the venue. And then it becomes, a whole new room again. And I think that was really attractive to me. And that's kind of why I found myself, sticking with it for a little bit of time.
And at Omnia Nightclub, I was looking at some pictures. You guys have like this spaceship modular huge lighting thing in the middle of the room where it can move different positions. There's multiple levels to it. Can you kind of give us some insight on what goes into that and how it operates and how you can be creative with that?
Absolutely. So before I even go into that, there's a massive team there that I couldn't even talk about that room without acknowledging them. First off, the main lighting director of the captain of the ship is Alvaro Grosso. He's one of the most phenomenal programmers I've ever watched program. I think his timing and what he does with lighting in air is unmatched. There's a video director named Darion. He's great. He is custom making content for the place. Joe Muro was the production manager there, and as well as running all of the audio interfaces, and he kept everything in tip-top shape. And then we had a couple production guys also on the team, Hector and Todd. Iggy was there before he went on tour with Steve Aoki. And I mean, every one of us put in, hours and hours just to keep that room looking like it did for the pictures. So before we step into that, I didn't want anyone to think that was my work. It was a collaborative effort. And a lot of times I was in a separate room, but that gave me the ability to fill in all of the positions and get to know the whole team, intimately. And I found that to be really fulfilling. So to answer your question, after that, the team that actually runs the chandeliers ran by an entire certified rigging team. So there is the team that I just talked about is handling the production, and we're firing macros through an MA that is communicating with Tate Navigator. And from that point, so basically that team is controlling the aesthetics of the chandelier. Mm-hmm. Then on Tate Navigator, there's a whole team ran by Melissa Nelson and her crew who's monitoring the Tate Navigator, and they are in charge of the rigging and the winches and making sure, they're monitoring the loads, because sometimes we get a little too artistic and things start swaying a little much, and they got to tell us to back off a little bit. But so the communication there is constantly happening. There is no Q1 at this point in the night, Q2 at this point in the night. We're listening to the music and we're saying, it'd be cool to do this shape or this shape. And we're doing it. And then we hit it. And then she's like, no. But, so that being said, two massive teams constantly going in and taking care of that. And then the design aspect of it is constantly evolving in improv too. There is no script for the show, like I probably already said. But anyway.
So, when a new artist comes in, you guys are basically, there's multiple artists in the building doing work. Like you have the DJ or the artist that's performing, and then you have the lighting crew that's designing on basically, to the song. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. And we have a monitor that's linked in up there to their CD players. And so we can see what tracks that they have and what they're about to mix in next. So if we get the feeling that they're probably going to skip verse 2 and verse 3 because we see what they've loaded up and where it's queued, we're, while keeping everything in tempo and keeping the look alive and building it, preparing for whatever may or may not come. It is a lot of artists in one room.
That's awesome.
And when someone like, Steve Aoki or Calvin Harris comes in, they sometimes bring their own gear, but I'm assuming that's something they still use too. How quickly are they able to adapt to that system in its entirety?
Good question. So when a touring crew comes in, the rig stays the same. They have their own show files on the consoles. We usually make sure that they have some programming time. Everybody does things in 3D these days. And then when they come in, you just update your focus palettes. You make sure your colors look like they thought they did. And when you point your lights everywhere, you make sure you're not blinding anybody too much, but it's pretty instantaneous. You know, we put in, you know, a nice blue look, usually before a big act like Calvin or Steve Aoki. There's like a couple minutes where it's not, lower energy music, so that their first song, the energy difference is really big. And there, in that time period, whoever for the crew may be, because it differs for every artist, is putting in their thumb drive into the console, loading up their show file, blinking through everything in a subtle way to make sure that the communication is proper. And then it's off to the races.
That's sweet. And I have a question. So when you're doing lighting for that many people in one room, it's a much different experience than like a concert or something like that, because there's so much energy and packed up energy, a lot of drinks, a lot of partying, so when the beat, gets up to tempo, obviously you could strobe these lights and you can make things go crazy, but all night long that might be a little monotonous, the same lights over and over again. What do you do differently to keep the crowd interested in the lighting and the rigs? Meaning, like, how do you implement it so that it's not the same strobe effect every time? Does that make sense?
Yeah, good question. So, from to answer that question, I'm going to go into another room of the club. We had a hip hop lounge also. So there was the big, massive room with the kinetic chandelier, and then there was a separate club in the same club that was majority hip hop music, which is primarily where I lived. So that open format style music was going all over the place. We would go from reggae to hip hop to R&B. They'd go up into some house, maybe play some throwback jams. And so that kind of presented the same challenge that you're talking about, because I was like, how do I make this room feel so different as we flip through 100 genres? And, it's knowing your rig intimately, okay, let's frost out the lights so the beams aren't sharp here because the mood is a little bit softer. Oh, you know what? Maybe we don't need to have any movement going on, and all of the kinetic energy in the room is through color effects. Maybe we drop the lights out and it's all video right now. Let's take turns as the, things are happening so that this drop doesn't feel like the next drop, And then once you do that for, a dozen shows, you get, a couple things from this show where you're like, wow, that really worked. And then you carried it over. And then you start having some favorite things that you do, like, oh, okay, so this song would be really cool if we did that thing that we do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, so then you start working towards those moments, subconsciously, really.
Have you ever been to a show or a nightclub where you're in the audience and you're seeing what's happening and it's kind of sparking some ideas and giving you that inspiration? Can you recall like one time that's really hit home for you?
Oh yeah. I mean, that's the best way to be inspired, is to go out and see what other people are doing with the same robots that we all know. Because I mean, when you watch the demo videos of fixtures when they come out, everything's bright and everything has 100 gobos and everything has a motorized iris, right? Then you go somewhere and you're like, oh, this is what someone has taken from that and how they've, made it into something alive in a weird way. And then you take it back home and you try to figure it out yourself. I would say every Coldplay show I've ever gone to has blown me away.
Absolutely.
I think that they do some incredible stuff. And I always try to sit a couple rows behind front of house just so I can watch it all, because, cohesively from the color of the lights to the album artwork to the costumes of the band to the pre-show music, I feel like it's all very well done. And there's no detail that goes, oh, it's okay, just play whatever. I think the attention is paid to everything like that. And that's inspiring. And then I like going to Drake shows. He puts some serious, whoever on his team is putting some serious time into what's going on his productions. And every time I go to one of those productions, I'm blown away.
Yeah, we had the honor of going backstage last year to that show, and because a lot of our products were used, and just the energy in that building
I love the laser effects they were using, like drawing stuff onto the stage. I thought that was super cool.
Yeah.
Like trying new things. So that's super cool. And now I know, like right behind front of house, that's the sweet spot. I always like that for sound, but I guess it makes a lot of sense for lighting too.
Yeah, absolutely. But going back to Omnia, this is so intriguing to me.
It really is.
Keep digging. Nothing is off limits.
So here's the deal. So like, on the touring side, and this is where it's so unbelievable to me, where the same show is done every night. They're playing the same show, and yeah, a lot of design and the beautiful, elegant lighting, everything's beautiful. But like with a nightclub, a lot of people don't think about it. It's just changing all the time. It's got to be so much fun to kind of go, well, what's going on this weekend? Well, what's going on this weekend? What effects are we using this weekend? But with all that has got to be a lot of maintenance. Correct? I mean,
oh yeah. Champagne gets sprayed on every piece of equipment, and anywhere, everywhere that you could find it is confetti.
Oh, I'm
sure you know all about that though.
Yeah. Well, luckily we don't get the complaints ever. It's just our clients are like, this confetti looks great, but then, you got guys like you who are like, they're in my fans and they're in my board or whatever.
Somehow gets into your underwear.
I know, right? So what, like when it comes to maintenance, is there a team at Omnia or do you guys hire out for that?
Anything we can do in-house, we do. And, fortunately we had quite a few guys there that were all eager and we all liked to get on that stuff. We never really let any sort of problems accumulate. Because if we do need to put something out the door, when you have something like a chandelier that is so symmetrical, when you're missing one light, even the average, nightclub attendee will notice that because, it creates a hole in the shape of the ceiling and in the hole. I don't know what word I'm trying to say, but you notice it because there's a gap in the air.
Absolutely.
And we want to make sure that there's minimal days that we're going to have that. So we had one spare of each light. And if something was unrepairable, in our hands, we would take it down that night and ship it out and hopefully have it back by the next show.
That's great. I mean, I love how this business works. We just get it done. I mean, that's really the thing. So speaking of getting it done,
yeah,
let's move forward, right? So unfortunately, last year was a emotional experience for everybody in our industry, but it looks like you're moving forward. You're doing different things. You're now in Miami, Florida, not in Vegas anymore. What are you doing now?
Oh man, I'm very lucky to be here. I moved here just a week and a half ago. It all happened very quickly. But man, I got to join the Chave professional team. I'm going to be helping them doing some online marketing and social media and for Camsus as well. And, I'm still so new to that team that I'm still in the honeymoon phase of being, I feel like I'm working at Willy Wonka's factory. I told you I've been tinkering with stuff like this. I mean, the first moving light I ever played with was a Q-Spot 575. And that was way back in the day when Chave was, just getting products out the door. And now I'm here,
That's awesome, man. Yeah, Chave Professional is doing some cool stuff.
Absolutely.
For sure.
And now you got your hands full because you're still running Limelight on the side as well.
Yeah, absolutely. No looking back on that. I think there's too much momentum and it's, helped me probably, a lot of people tell me that they've enjoyed it, but I think it's helped me more, just as a healthy passion project. And I think that there's no reason to stop and let's just keep sharing the knowledge out there because it fills a void in our industry, and I'm going to do that as long as I can.
Yeah, I can definitely say for myself, it's helped me and it's gave me some tips and some laughs too. So
yeah, we're on the special effects side of things all the time. So sometimes, when we go back into the lighting world, we miss some things, So
can you guys talk about what it's like being special effects people and talking to, like interacting with lighting people on the regular? What is terrible about us?
Nothing terrible.
Terrible. A lot of people. Well, I think the biggest thing is a lot of designers think that haze is controllable as far as from the environment. So, I think that's our biggest hurdle is when it comes to haze, where they're like, well, why, well, you're in this drafty, stadium, you're going to need this much, you're going to need this much fluid and stuff. So haze is always the hardest part because it's the hardest to control,
And it's the most important, unfortunately.
It is, yes, it is. But we've been in the business a while to definitely make it work.
We do our best.
Yeah.
Oh man, you guys are doing outstanding over there.
Appreciate that.
Thank
you so much. Yeah, we got some big plans for this year too. We're pretty excited about. Fingers crossed that the industry gets back up on its feet. Coming here soon. So,
what are some of the goals you have for Limelight moving forward? Is this do you see it being more social media based? Would you like to open a blog page? I know you're doing videos now. Like, what are some of the goals you have set for Limelight?
Well, I think I'm at a point where I'm really open to feedback about that. So, if you're listening and you go to the page on Instagram, hit message and just message the profile what you would want to see on it, because I'm going to be the one that reads the message, and I I would like it to evolve into a platform that's kind of for the programmer, not me thinking about what I want to do anymore. I'd like it to be something that, what is out there that people need, what information do people want, and then I'll find a way to deliver that in some way, because I'm passionate about this stuff. I've been doing it a long time, and I'm not intending on stopping anytime soon. So let's all grow and learn together, because if there's one thing I've learned about this industry is that it does not slow down. It's just going to get products are going to get developed quicker. I mean, we're doing wireless moving lights that are LED, and they're bright enough to be in stadiums. It's like, what? I mean, 10 years ago, I would have thought that was crazy talk. So, who knows what the next 10 years will bring. And as that technology gets introduced, I hope that, I can be a source, a resource for that, because, knowledge is hard to access in our industry, unless you're going to read every single user's manual of every single product. It's hard to learn how to program on multiple consoles. It's hard to learn, how to change a lamp on different lights without, having to change a lamp on different lights. And being equipped with, just, a little bit of information makes being adaptable in a real situation so much better, because you're like, oh, well, that's kind of like the thing that, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I just hope that that's what the profile can evolve into.
Very cool. And then I got to ask, because some of these memes have me cracking up. Are these made by you from experience?
Yeah. Every meme and every caption is made by me and is probably sourced from some horrible memory of some instance.
So one of the most recent ones was dropping a gel on the catwalk. Please enlighten us.
Well, so here's a funny story, because I have a much bigger theatrical background than I lead on about. When I was in high school doing theater, I used to tell everybody goodbye, and then and the directors would leave, but I knew where the keys were, so I would sneak back in after everybody had left, grab the keys, unlock the venue, and get to work, because that was like my happy place, in school.
Yeah.
And that was like, I wanted the show to be as good as possible. And so I would be in the catwalks by myself, and I would constantly be dropping gel frames as I tried to gel Licos, hanging over the ledge. Mm-hmm. And then I'm the only one there in the venue. And I'm like, man, I have to go all the way down.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's the worst.
But everybody's done that once or twice. And if you haven't, you're going to.
Yeah, I used to run sound at my high school, and man, it was like, it must have took 15 minutes to get down, because our theater was ginormous, and there was like a spiral staircase. Then you had to go all the way down, every single stair. It's crazy. But
when I went to college, I thought it was a radical idea that they had a bird cage on a rope, and they would raise and lower it from the tension grid to the ground. And I was like, why didn't I think of that?
Speaking of college, just curious, like a lot of your knowledge, would you say, and it could be a ratio, did a lot of your knowledge come from school and learning in the classroom through books, or did a lot of your knowledge come from just being hands-on at the club or on tour? Or
Well, I think it definitely is a hybrid of the two, but the subconscious, being able to cue things on the fly and being able to say, this is going to be this sort of look, that's kind of always there, and that comes with practice, because college can't teach you how to make a beautiful look on stage, but it can teach you how to articulate that, Mm-hmm. And so learning the words to say and learning the paperwork, paperwork was a big thing in college, because I remember when I got there, I knew what I wanted to do, but I didn't know how to do it, So the processes and the paperwork and the communication and collaboration, which is all very important in what we do, because, it's never just hanging lights. The speakers are in front of the lights, and then you got to move the light. You know what I mean? All of that sort of, negotiating and collaborating and going back and forth definitely was something that I learned in school, because you have to be a good collaborator in this world, or else no one's going to want to work with you. And if you're only, if you're able to come in with multiple departments and be like, okay, let's all make something really cool together. Let's put the speakers here and the lights around here, and let's get the pyro going here. Then everybody's happy, instead of everybody fighting over center front of house space,
Understood. Yeah. And what would you give, someone in, in college right now,
Or high school.
or high school, you know, what kind of advice would you give?
That's always tough.
It is a tough
Because
question.
there's so much you can give, and you
Yeah.
know, what's the one that you want to say? But I definitely would just say, just be, don't be scared to try new things. I've done so many different things, and it's helped me find out what I don't like to do. And it's not like one day you're going to work something and you're going to be like, this is what I want to do forever. I mean, maybe you might be lucky enough to do that, but chances are you're going to do a lot of stuff you don't like, and it's going to narrow down the stuff that you do like, by learning by what you don't like. And it's also going to give you experience, like working in opera. I've done several operas, and I don't really want to do opera ever again, but working opera, definitely I pulled stuff from those experiences and brought it into concerts and nightclubs that probably made me a better concert and nightclub guy.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. That's some good advice.
I'd say so.
Yeah. We get asked all the time, I do some like presentations at my old high school and some other high schools, and I'll come in and talk about owning a business and stuff. And these kids are smarter than you think. Like, they ask some really intelligent questions. I don't think I would have asked these questions when I was in high school, but just really like, they were asking me questions about inventory and all this stuff that I'm like, what are you? Let's just
I'm
be
still
high
figuring
schoolers.
that out myself.
I don't know. I'm like, but it's cool to see. I'm excited about the future. Speaking of the future, what are you excited like, products wise? Do you have like any brands out there that you're just looking forward to, some products this year, or anything that you're excited to see from any brand?
Yeah. Well, today Avo Lights launched their new console.
That
And,
video is gorgeous.
Yeah, it was
I
awesome.
mean, whoever did that deserves a raise. So they are on something over there, and I'm really proud of the guys that work over there, because I used an Avo Lights in the hip hop lounge at Omnia, and when I jumped on that desk, man, I think it was version 7 of their software. Now they're on version 15, and I was in no part have any credit for what that has evolved into, but I'm proud to at least been a user for that long and grown up with it kind of as a lighting director and programmer, because it's a really powerful workstation now, and I'm excited for what they're doing. And I think that people should take a second look at what they're offering over there, because, I always say MA is AutoCAD and Avo Lights is Vectorworks.
I gotcha.
And it's a little more creatively intuitive, and, you can get everything you want done, maybe a little easier than the MA. Don't at me.
So, well, I that was my next question, like go to console, and you answered that. So Avo Lights. All right.
Yeah. Now I'm recently, at a position with Camsys now. So I feel bad not saying that that's my favorite desk, but I also am not a liar. And I'm very excited for the developments in Camsys and what they've got coming down the pipeline. So, nobody should be sleeping on them either.
That's awesome.
Good.
And what about a fixture? You have one fixture to use for an entire show, 100 of them. What are you using?
Roby Megapoint, probably.
Roby Megapoint.
Yeah. Maybe a Sharpie wash. I know that those aren't the brightest guys, but they can be Sharpies and be washes.
Why the Rogue? Like what?
Roby, you mean?
I'm sorry. Yeah. Why the Roby? Why was that the first thing that came to your head?
Well, it's pretty versatile. It's got a smorgasbord of beam effects. So, like we were talking about earlier, one fixture can feel, a dozen different ways without digging too deep into the parameters. And then, once you do, then you've got a whole nother appetite of things that you can do with the fixture. I mean, it's got a couple prisms. It's got pretty wide zoom range. Its optics are great. And I mean, it's a sturdy product. It's not going to break or fall apart. And I think that's important too, because you want to know that once you fly it, you don't have to go back up and rescue it later.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Their booth at LDI was insane.
Yeah.
It's just great. It's always fun. But that's awesome, man. Any other questions you have?
Yeah, I got questions for you guys.
You have questions for us?
Yeah.
Yeah, please do.
I mean, I've never gotten, that's one sector of the industry that I've never really played with. I want to ask about control. So when, you guys do a lot of effects, right?
Yeah.
A lot of stuff. So how do you control that? Do you control, cause not all the time is it plugged into the lighting console. What do you guys do when you're like, all right, we've got a lot of different elements over here and we're ready to play our different instruments? Like, what goes on?
So are you asking like control for the products other than DMX? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, like your approach. Do you try to get it all on one desk? Do you like to have stuff on like at Omnia? We always kept our cryogenics separately because we couldn't really see everything that was affected by cryo. Come time to blast off. So do you run into situations like that? What do you take into consideration when you're even walking into a venue with that many things to think about? I guess is really
well. Typically we're not doing shows because we're a manufacturer, but when it comes to our clients, that are purchasing our products, we're typically making custom controllers for them or something for them to actually control it with. That's more for the pyro guy side of things. Typically on the pyro side, they're either using custom controllers with very easy big buttons with safeties and keys so that things aren't accidentally pushed off. But but also when it comes to the lighting side, we got to be DMX friendly too. So all of our confetti cannon stuff and all of our custom products all could be DMX controllable. On the lighting side, the Mystic is probably the most famous product, for our haze generator side of things. But that's pretty easy to use as far as haze goes.
Right,
It's But I hope that answered your question. Ryan, do you have anything else to add to that?
Yeah, it just really depends on the product. We try to make it, as easy as possible. Much fewer channels than your typical like huge fixture.
For instance, this is the impact. Was this supposed to be about Master Effect? It's supposed to be about you.
Well, I'm a curious guy.
Yeah. So this is the impact, and you put you put confetti cannons in the top of it. But we thought outside the box for all of our customers, meaning it has DMX in. It also has 24-volt in. So you're giving the customer different options. Also, you could run it on a dimmer pack, so you can bypass completely all these operations. So we try to make every product, and you'll notice on every one of our products, there's also a 24-volt in 1/4-inch input. And that's more for like theme parks, haunted attractions that aren't using DMX. They're just using two wires pushed together, wanting to activate it. So we try to cover that with all of our products where it's easy for any type of industry to go and use. So,
and as always,
go ahead.
As always, I was going to say there's, we use the same operating system for every single one. It's the same screen, and you can operate it manually too. So there's at least 2 to 5 different ways to operate every machine that we make for those varying customers and industries.
What is your favorite lane of the industry to be a part of? Do you enjoy theme parks more than you thought you would? Because I mean, like that's some heavy stuff over there.
I think there's no way for me to choose a favorite between the all, because they all have a different kind of style to it.
Yeah.
So it's really fun working with theme parks, putting on a huge Halloween show, and it's just as much fun working with lighting and pyro companies, helping put on these major concert tours. So everything has got its own little niche. I wouldn't say I have a favorite.
I just love the problem solving. I think what people love about Master Effects is that you're calling someone here that you trust, and you're calling us and you have a problem, and we're going to go and custom make something, custom do something to make it work. Our retail side of things came later. We're first a custom company. I mean, we design and make things for companies that need something special. And then the retail side came later when we were making the same thing over and over again. So I love everything. I love it all. I mean, some of the businesses that you might not think we're in are fire training and military, which we do a lot of, where we're smoking out entire buildings. And
wow, I would have never thought that.
Yeah. So that's a huge part, because we're helping these guys train for disaster, and that's rewarding too for us. So
that's so cool. I never thought about the, obviously I thought about the, custom situations that you might have you need an effect, but I didn't think about training firemen. That's way off the field. That's got to be so cool to be a part of.
Yeah, it's fun.
It is neat to see a little bit of everything. Keeps it interesting too.
But so, a lot of people ask, well, why don't you do touch screens on your machines and stuff like that? Well, we got people with giant gloves that need to push a button, So there's a lot of thought that goes into our products when it comes to control. Just going back to your control question on how do we make this good for everybody? If touch screens are cool and they're fancy, but unfortunately it won't work for all of our clientele, and we don't want to make all these separate products for all these clientele. So yeah.
Wow. Well, that's so fascinating.
Thank you. So do you have any other questions for us? This is fun.
It somehow turned into interview beyond. Yeah.
But no, man, it's been awesome to see Limelight Wired and to see what you're doing. It's definitely motivational for us. I know like Ryan will come up to my office and be like, you got to see what Limelight did today. And I'm coming down to him. We're talking about it at lunch with all the guys and girls here. And it's just, it's awesome. And we're excited. So it just makes us excited to see you excited and moving up and moving onward. So
hey, I appreciate that, guys. And I mean that right back to you. You know, you guys have, like you said, you started with making stuff custom and now you're retailing stuff. That's, you know, no easy feat. And I want to acknowledge it because it is a lot of hard work, and I'm impressed with what you're doing over there.
appreciate that. Thank you. Appreciate it. Well, we'll have to send you some stuff and see what you think.
And maybe do another giveaway. For those who don't know, there was a contest we put together last month.
It was.
Speaking of that was pretty, I didn't think we were going to get some of those hard hitters back.
Some really neat, really neat.
People got really creative this year, and I was impressed.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
It made me question my own queuing ability as a lighting guy.
And hopefully if trade shows come back this year, maybe we'll see you at LDI, something like that.
Absolutely.
Great
If
to
you're ever in
shake
South
hands.
Florida, you know, you got a friend here.
Yeah,
man. How hot is it out there right now?
It's a really, really cold 70.
From Vegas to Miami.
That's awesome.
Everybody keeps telling me that this is the worst weather of the past several years, and I'm like, well, I think I'll be okay.
Rane, thank you so much. It's been an honor. We appreciate you having, taking some time to talk with us.
Thank you for having me, guys. It means a lot.
It's been great. Thanks everybody for listening.
Yeah. See you in February.